contains disturbing themes and content. Viewer discretion is advised.
The Burger Chef family would like to have your family over for dinner. Burger Chef goes all out to please your family.
Hello, hello. Can you stay a while? Hello, hello. Good to see you smile.
Yet it was a local man dressed in battle fatigues who declared, "I have killed 1,000, I'm gonna kill 1,000 more." A virtual army of police and rescue personnel had crowded the main street through this border town. Suddenly, a shot was fired. Police radio screamed, "He's down, he's down."
I know this video is probably a bit weird if you're reading the title. Strangely, it came to me after ordering DoorDash this past week and my subconscious having a dream about making the video. I'm not even kidding, I sometimes dream about the subjects for these videos and yeah, I know it's kind of weird. It led me online once again wondering just how many suspicious things happen in these restaurants we stop by every day. And besides some questionable business practices, I came across 4 more disturbing cases you could find on the web, this time involving some of the most convenient locations to have an enjoyable night. So today, I'm going to lay out some cases I've dubbed the Fast Food 4, and the gruesome and somewhat mysterious circumstances surrounding them. On July 15th, 1984, a man by the name of James Huberty told his wife Etna that he believed he had a mental health problem. He looked to rectify it 2 days later, calling the San Diego Mental Health Clinic. Due to a receptionist error, his call wasn't returned as it had been logged as a non-crisis call. The following morning, July 18th, Huberty had told his wife that society had their chance after the clinic failed to return his call. After returning from the San Diego Zoo with his family, he gave Etna a kiss goodbye and told his oldest daughter, Zelia, that he wasn't coming back, before saying his goodbye and walking out of the house, holding a cloth bag and a gun around his shoulder. No one suspected anything as he told his family that he was actually going to go hunting. At around 4 p.m. on a hot July day, Huberty drove his Mercury Marquis into a McDonald's parking lot on San Ysidro Boulevard. According to employees at the restaurant, Huberty walked into the building wielding a 9mm Browning high-power pistol, a 9mm Uzi carbine, a Winchester 1200 12-gauge shotgun, and the cloth bag filled with assorted ammo. He walked in and aimed his shotgun at a 16-year-old worker by the name of John Arnold. When he pulled the trigger, nothing happened. That was until he cleared the jam in his gun. Huberty then began using his guns to massacre everyone in the restaurant. No one inside or outside the restaurant had a chance. Huberty had amassed a body count of 21 while injuring an additional 19. The victims ranged from 8 months old to 76, and were mostly, but not exclusively, Mexican-American. One pregnant victim by the name of Jackie Reyes had been shot 48 times before he executed the 8-month-old boy she was protecting via gunshot to the back. It wasn't until an hour later that police intervention had finally arrived after the dispatch team had been sent to the wrong McDonald's location. As the police arrived, Huberty rained bullets upon the responding police cars. After establishing a perimeter, the SWAT teams were authorized to kill the perpetrator, if given the shot, around 5:05 p.m. Huberty kept fiddling with a radio between firing at law enforcement. He began dancing around like a fool as he was firing upon a group of people hidden in the kitchen. It wasn't until 5:17 p.m. that SWAT sniper Charles Foster fired a single round into Huberty, severing his aorta and killing him almost instantly. During the aftermath, it was found that Huberty was a known gun enthusiast, a conspiracy theorist, and may have even snapped due to being fired from his job about a week before the shooting. Police even made a statement saying there were no racial motivations to the attack. According to a lawsuit filed by Etna Huberty against McDonald's and Babcock and Wilcox, she blamed his mental break from poor diet and highly poisonous metals affecting his health, inciting his delusions. Today, a victim's memorial sits at the location where Southwestern College now stands, in place of the former McDonald's building. At the time of this incident, it's been considered the deadliest mass shooting by a lone gunman in the US history, before being unseated by another entry on this very video, that is. If you've watched an episode of Game Theory, you probably know all about this one. This case is widely believed to be a loose inspiration for the popular indie horror title Five Nights at Freddy's. This, however, is unfortunately as real as it is grim. On December 14th, 1993, former employee Nathan Dunlap entered a Chuck E. Cheese's arcade and pizzeria. In Aurora, Colorado, it was around 9 p.m. when he ordered a ham and cheese sandwich, before proceeding to play the arcade games until around 9:50, where he hid in the bathroom. At 10:05 p.m., he snuck out of the bathroom while the employees were cleaning up after closing time. Using a .25 caliber handgun, Dunlap proceeded to make his way to the salad bar. There, he shot 19-year-old Sylvia Crowell. From there, he shot 17-year-old Ben Grant near his eye while he was vacuuming, before turning his attention to a 17-year-old Colleen O'Connor, who he shot through the top of her head while she pleaded for her life. Dunlap made his way to the kitchen where he shot the restaurant's cook, Bobby Stevens, in the jaw, before walking in the back and forcing the store manager, Marge Kohlberg, to unlock the safe. After she complied, Dunlap shot her twice and left with around $1,500 in tokens, cash, and keychains. Miraculously, Bobby Stevens and Sylvia Crowell had actually survived and were rushed to the hospital. Crowell unfortunately passed away due to her injuries, but Stevens would survive and become a vital piece during the trial of Dunlap, who was arrested shortly after being found at his mother's apartment. Dunlap was found guilty of first-degree murder, attempted murder, robbery, and burglary in 1996. He was sentenced to death and an additional 108 years on May 17th of 1996. After many failed appeals, Dunlap's execution date was set for August of 2013, before Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper granted Dunlap clemency. After Colorado repealed the death penalty in 2020, Dunlap's sentence was commuted to life without parole. This next case may be the first look at what the word incel looks like in the flesh. The most disturbing part of this entire case was the fact that it played out over a span of around 12 minutes. On October 16, 1991, Killeen, Texas just managed to sit down for lunch to celebrate Boss's Day. One of the promotions going around was that of Luby's cafeteria. The lunch rush was bigger than most days, and many were enjoying a quick celebration before going back to work, while others were just trying to kill some time before their shift resumed. It wasn't until 12:39 p.m. that many of the patrons heard a terrifying sound. The sound of a building on the verge of collapse. As patrons dined, a blue 1987 Ford Ranger slammed through the glass window, right into the restaurant before 35-year-old George Hennard, a recently unemployed sea merchant, got out from the driver's seat. In his hand, he brandished two Glock 17 and Ruger P89 pistols. As he approached the patrons, he screamed, "All women of Killeen and Belton are vipers. This is what you've done to me and my family. This is what Bell County did to me. This is payback." Hennard began firing, picking his targets selectively. He would target two women, cursing them out before shooting them dead. He would stalk through the cafe and fire upon a total of 50 people. As he was firing, a survivor by the name of Tony Vaughn flung himself out the window, creating an opening for people to escape through. By the time police arrived, a third of the victims had managed to actually escape. A shootout commenced, and Hennard was shot twice by police. Exhausting all of the ammo for one of his handguns, he turned his remaining bullet on himself, ending the hostage situation. His victims ranged from 29 years old to 75. A possible and obvious motive for the shooting was that Hennard himself was just a known racist and a misogynist. Many former co-workers remarked that he would consistently get into trouble, and he even stalked two sisters that lived a couple blocks from him. Letters he would send them were found stating, "I'm truly flattered knowing I have two teenage groupie fans." Because of his known sexism, the police noticed a pattern in his victims as mostly women. After the tragedy, Luby's reopened 5 months later, but permanently closed in 2000, being replaced with a Chinese-American buffet restaurant. The chain also donated over $100,000 for the funeral costs of the victims. Happening after the McDonald's incident on this list, this became known as the deadliest shooting by a lone gunman in US history, until it was passed over by the Virginia Tech shooting in 2007. Between 11 p.m. and midnight on Friday, November 17, 1978, 4 workers at the Burger Chef restaurant located in Speedway, Indiana were closing up shop. Around midnight, another employee came by to visit the 4 and noticed something absolutely bizarre. There wasn't a single other person inside the restaurant. Looking around, they noticed the back door was open and the money safe door as well. It was next to 2 empty currency bags and a roll of tape. Initially, the police dismissed the case as a petty case of teenagers running off with the money for a night of partying. Strangely, the female employees had left their purses and jackets, as well as over $100 had been left in change in the registers. But the Burger Chef morning shift cleaned the mess the following morning. Speedway officer Buddy Ellwanger was quoted saying that they screwed up from the beginning, as not only was the crime scene cleaned and allowed to reopen, no one had taken any photos beforehand. The kids never showed back up at home or at the restaurant. It wasn't until that Sunday morning that the crime scene would start to come into a somewhat clearer picture. As Sunday morning came, a couple had been hiking in the woods over 20 miles away in Johnson County. That's when they came across a grisly sight at the end of some tire tracks they've been following. 4 bodies, all still in uniform. 16-year-old Daniel Davis and 18-year-old Ruth Ellen Shelton had been found shot multiple times execution style with a .38 caliber handgun. 20-year-old supervisor Jane Freet had been stabbed twice so hard that the knife handle had broken off and was missing. 16-year-old Mark Flemons was found to be bludgeoned, potentially by a chain, and died from choking on his own blood. The police were baffled and didn't know where to start with their investigation. After all, the way these teens were killed, it was almost thought to be somebody that they knew personally. No connections were ever found through this lead, though. Later on, 2 kids admitted they had seen suspicious activity in front of the restaurant as they passed by. 2 men were parked in a van outside, almost as if they were waiting. When they saw the kids, they approached them and asked to see their IDs before being shooed away by them. The kids described the men as both white, in their 30s, one with a beard, and the other pale with light-colored hair. Later that year, a man who bragged he'd been involved with the killings was questioned by officers. He gave names to 2 men who fit the descriptions, but no evidence was ever found regarding them. It wasn't until 1984 that the case found a suspect again. This time, a prisoner by the name of Donald Forrester confessed to the murders of Daniel Davis and Ruth Ellen Shelton. Supposedly, he and a crew of associates went to threaten Jane Freet because her brother owed money on a drug deal. Mark Flemons went to intervene, but supposedly bumped his head on the bumper of the car. Believing Flemons had died, Forrester's group decided to abduct and kill all the witnesses to the potential crime. Forrester then led police to an area where he ditched his gun, provided details that weren't public knowledge, and even provided them with the locations of shell casings from the rounds fired at the teens. After Forrester's cooperation was leaked to the public, he immediately recanted his statement and claimed he was coerced by police. The final lead came from the arrest of Jane Freet's brother James. He had been caught selling cocaine and in prison had run into a man by the name of Alan Pruitt, who taunted him with his sister's death. Pruitt told police he had seen the abduction take place and even witnessed one of the men striking the teens. Pruitt supposedly had another run-in with the kidnappers, who he called Tim Willoughby and Jeff Reed. He accepted a ride from them, and a woman who was dating one of the men was there with them. She warned Pruitt that they were going to kill him, and so he escaped by swimming away in the creek. After the police heard this, they checked into the man and the woman named Mary Ann Higginbotham. When looking into Willoughby, the police found he had disappeared without a trace. He was presumed dead and hasn't been seen since. However, Higginbotham was found dead inside of a barrel in 1979. The problem with this story is that Pruitt constantly changed it, and later stated he was changing it so often because he was tired of being pestered by the police. To this day, the case remains unsolved, and it looks like we may never know who committed the atrocious Burger Chef murders. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and maybe even subscribing to see the next upload. Remember that you're loved, and I look forward to broadcasting to your screens again next time. Sleep tight.